Excuse me as I make this review. You'll see my hear some clicking. I'm just organising a folder and make this easier and not to accidentally delete the narration. And I'm feeling a bit sick, mental health wise and a bit physical as well. So yeah, let's go on with the review. I'm due to make one of these as I'm reading off a script here, just for the record. I didn't proofread it all. So I beat Endwalker about 1 month ago. To sum up, though, for anyone wondering what the MMO experience is like for Final Fantasy XIV and doesn't want really an in-depth review, it is a great experience with a few caveats, but some of these caveats are big and small, so be aware of that. But with some of the smaller details, let's start with the story. The appeal of the game for me was the story, and it was not good in a realm we bought. Up until the level 45 quest, at least, with the Magitek stuff. So yeah, these can be skipped if you do plan on playing the story. Heaven's Ward was great, with unexpected moments of shock value. Stormblood was more of the same, but with more of an emphasis on a common foe. Shadowbringers was an entirely different story, and it was decent. Endwalker, though, was peak. Literally almost brought me to tears by the end of it. Also, each expansion has a post-story content, and I was kind of mixed on all these. So it's more like side stories and Dawn, and yeah, just more like side stories. But Dawn Trail, which I'll review at a later point, is a different story entirely, literally. And it was a disaster, but I'll just say what I need to say after I've experienced all of it. Visually, you might wonder how the game holds up. It holds up well in many areas. It's just surprising. It runs pretty smoothly as well, although I think older systems will struggle. I have an RTX 3070 with Ryzen 5800X. Played at 1080p, 1440p with max settings and got consistent between 80 and 120 frames per second. For the settings, and some environments as well. That was kind of the appeal to me as well. Some of the maps look very interesting and very unique, and a bit more unique than World of Warcraft for comparison. And character models look great too, with tons of customization. Next we go on to gameplay, and there's different sections of this. Even though I try not to detail it, it does go into a bit of detail. There's like gear, duties, collectables, glamour, and accessibility. Glamour is transmog for anyone familiar with that in World of Warcraft. First thing I've got to say, PvP is awful. Only touch it if you want to level and get rewards. But the PvP system is so bad because of buffs that increase HP restoration and damage after kills. It's not balanced at all, and you can't even really counter it, to be honest. That's how bad it is. Next thing is gear. It's difficult to gear up from level 1 onwards, but level 50 you get a currency called Kontakt, which you can get from high-end duties, which can then be spent on gear from Sundry Splendor in most cities. And just for record, high-end duties are not, I say high-end, but it's more like level cap duties, but they're not difficult. It depends on the duty really, but usually it's like normal level stuff. But yeah, you can also get some gear with different currencies from things called hunts, and there's other things through like specific content, which is for a later point. In general, higher item level it's better, and you can add material to some of these pieces of gear for an extra damage boost. Classes. For the few I've tried, I'm mostly impressed. You'll definitely have classes you like and classes you hate. But there are clever abilities within each of them. Firstly, unlocking a class and changing them are so easy, since you can do it all on one character by equipping the respective weapon type for the class, and well, every class has like one specific weapon they use, and it's not shared. Lost where I was on the script, it's great. Yeah, and it's just assuming you've done all the quests to unlock them, which some do. Some require the MSQ to be progressed. But I'll go through the classes I'm playing. Paladin, fun tank with shield capabilities and looks cool as fuck. Dark Knight, a very selfish tank sadly, but has plenty of DPS capabilities for some reason. Scholar, a barrier healer with too many buttons. I do not like it. Astrologian, a pure healer with some fun mechanics around cards, which aren't RNG by the way, but they have heal over time and instant casts. And a cool cast time reduction ability which allows for instant cast in most cases. And sort of tying into that, I forgot to mention that some casters and healers have the ability to resurrect allies mid-combat, which with an ability called Swift Cast you can instant revive, otherwise it would take 8 seconds to do. Yeah. And the people who resurrect obviously appear alive and mid-combat, but they start with a 25% debuff that lasts for a few minutes. Not 1 minute usually, but I think it can last for longer. And it only goes down to 25%, so each death is like 25% off. Next class I played is Physical Range DPS, and I've only played Bard and Machinist, but Bard, somewhat fun with plenty of party buffs and proc damage. Machinist, awful design, since it doesn't agree with 14 Slaggers held button system, which is one big problem with the game at the moment. And I've only tried one melee DPS, Viper, which is from Dawn Trail unfortunately. But it's very fun, heavy DPS capabilities, and even has range attacks, believe it or not. With sometimes requiring repositioning to the flank or the rear of an enemy, as indicated by the circle below them. Casters, I've played Summoner was my first caster DPS. Simple and a great starter class. Pictomancer, a great medic DPS, which unfortunately is locked to Dawn Trail, so unless you have that you can't play it. But Pictomancer is great because they can utilise motifs which you use to it's not that loud music, try to yeah, they cast motifs and that basically gives them damage abilities. It's almost like friction, but it sort of isn't in other ways. It's more like the more you can keep that up and utilise it cleverly, the more DPS you do. Yeah, it's fun to play anyway. Finally there's Blue Mage. Very difficult class, but cool in concept. You learn abilities by killing enemies in and around the world, including duties. You can play tank and healer roles with this, but these aren't executed so well, sadly. And I do honestly think they're in need of buffing. But that's all the classes I played, and I won't go into like crafters and gatherers. But the only ones you need to worry about. Look, all the gatherers are kind of necessary. Fishing, you could do ocean fishing. It isn't in the script, by the way. Miner, you can do like Ishgard restoration. There's also custom or expert deliveries or whatever they're called. If you're a grand company, which you unlock pretty early on, that gives a massive increase in XP and skills to the latest expansion, believe it or not. You can also do the Livy quests, which help. But only do that for miner and botanist. Ocean fishing is the best way to get Fisher up, and the only crafter you should probably level is Culinarian. And I think the only quest you need to worry about is like level 30, because you get desynthesis, you can desynthesize food, and that sort of gives like crystals which you can use to craft stuff. And it's useful to have a crafter just because of some of the later content, like beast tribes and custom deliveries where you can get extra rewards and stuff. It's very complex, but once you know, you know. That's a lot of the thing with this game. Anyway, next thing is duties. Duties, as a general thing, are good. You experience them in quests sometimes, and dungeons are great. They're varied, but from Shadowbringers onwards with all duties, enemies seem to take far longer to kill, which is frustrating. Trolls, which are one-off boss content, are usually interesting but start to feel a bit difficult past Stormblood, with hard to read mechanics. Then there's normal raids, which are not like raids as you know them, but they're split up into 3 tiers. 4 bosses per tier, you challenge one at a time, which is better because you can also get gear drops with them. You can focus on one at a time, like you can learn it if you want, it's up to you. The trials and raids have harder versions called Extreme Trials and Savage Raids, respectively. There are Unreal Trials and Ultimate Raids too for the hardcore people. Yeah. But then there's Alliance Raids, which are your standard raid content. They're more fun and quicker. My favourites being in Stormblood and Endwalker. They get drastically more difficult after A Realm Reborn, which have the only main story related side content here with the Alliance Raids. For some reason. But yeah, it's good. And I forgot to mention, you're split into 3 groups of 8 in Alliance Raids. Trials and normal raids are 8 players, and dungeons are 4 players. There is also variant dungeons which you can play any role, but I've only played 1 so far, so don't take my word for it. Yeah, the next gameplay thing is collectibles. You've got fashion, you've got faceware, you've got mounts and minions, you've got varying degrees of quality for them. But for the most part they are pretty good. The acquisition, however, can be troubling as some parts of the game are done well, where you can get things multiple ways, but some you can't, and that kind of sucks. Meaning it's only one way, and you have to tunnel vision on that essentially. Glamour, for the most part, Glamour system is good, since you can dye some armor and sets. You also save them as like glamour plates, which you can reapply and never have to use like glamour prisms. There's like a whole system for it. It's a bit confusing at times, so you can't grasp it. There's no need to reapply every time, but I recall WoW lacking this feature. But one of the shittiest things about Glamour, and arguably probably is the worst, is you're limited to saving 800 pieces of Glamour, and you do that by storing it in the Glamour dresser. And even if you do the calculations around incompatible Glamour, like some legs not working with chest pieces and some chest pieces not working with like wrist and necklaces, and a lot of gloves not working with rings and stuff, it's still fairly fleshed out, and you'll be using like 6 pieces on average. So 800 seems like a lot, but over time it's not nearly enough, especially when you like the piece that you got. Relevance and old content. Final Fantasy XIV is almost a masterclass in keeping old content relevant with like the likes of Duty Roulette and rewarding in-game currencies with it as a bonus. And also you could be almost any role, especially during like evenings where everyone is back from work, so role doesn't really matter. You get into queues fairly quickly, at least in Chaos data centers at night, I think. But anyone's willing to play anything, and queues could be anywhere from 1 second, believe it or not, to 5 minutes, and this is on roulettes especially, where you experience old content at random, or current content, you don't know. If queuing for old content with specific instances outside of the roulette, for example, Endwalker's Alliance Raid content, you'll be waiting anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, which fucking sucks. Holy shit, please fix the Square Enix. It's so bad. So it makes completing them more difficult, and further proves the point that we need a way to do the same thing with less players. And the crazy thing about Alliance Raids past Heaven's Ward is you don't really need teams to beat most of them. It's like something you can almost solo. Next thing is accessibility. All of Novice is basically your tutorial, and it's pretty good. I've played through all of it. You get a XP bonus ring if you complete it all. Obviously I don't know of any accessibility features for any disabled or impaired gamers. You can use controller for the game, if that helps. There is UI scaling, which is handy. You go up to 200% of the UI and it can literally cover your screen, even the smallest box. But the game does do a terrible job of being good for new players and inexperienced players for that matter. Because even if you are experienced, it is incredibly difficult to get used to even lower difficulty content. It depends on the content, like the jump from... actually, I went to this first. In World of Warcraft, generally you had add-ons, but here you can't use them apparently. We had like boss debug or something, or DBM ones, I can't remember what it's called. There's like a thing that tells you what to do, but here you don't have that, and as a result, it can take a while to get used to. And boss isn't a problem over time, you get used to it. There are problems with like being able to read abilities, like some bosses will do things that look similar but aren't the same. I think of like, I actually made up an example earlier, yesterday even. Let's say a boss does a thing called left cast, or no, I don't know what to call it, like forward cast or something. True cast, yeah, true cast does it. And they're doing an attack with their right hand, let's say, and it covers the entire right side of the area with an AoE attack. Obviously, it does damage. And they do true cast before that, like, okay, they're right hand, so you need to move to to the left as you're facing them, which is pretty simple. But sometimes they'll throw in a curveball, which can be hard to get used to, but they'll do like false cast. And again, I'm making this up, but they'll do it with their right hand. So, what would that mean? And I think, if you can quickly think about it, and obviously do pause and think about it, what does that mean? It's probably going to mean they're not going to cast with their right hand. They're actually going to do it with their left hand, so you need to move to their right essentially, or assuming you're already in that position you were before, you don't move. But yeah, it's like really complicated. And another example, which is actually something I experienced myself, you get bosses that do these like zigzag attacks in like Shadowbringer trials, and the way to avoid them is going to the first, like next to the first sort of trail they do, and then standing in that once they've done it. It's pretty simple, but very hard to learn. And it took me like a good few tries to learn that. And I still haven't quite mastered it, even with hundreds of hours of gameplay now. Yeah, be aware of that in terms of difficulty. And also don't feel bad about dying, because that seems to happen a lot. I think people seem to, and I do get frustrated myself, but people seem to think that it's a sign of being bad, dying to mechanics that you're not aware of, but it's not actually the case. The game does seem to really complicate some mechanics, and you can only learn them through observing and obviously dying over and over again. And I think there should be a change, honestly, in terms of accessibility, where sprouts, or at least those who have not completed the dungeon at least like 3 times, they shouldn't get a debuff when they get resurrected. Simple. This way it's not punishing for the veteran players, and also like healer, for example, who is the only one who can revive in some cases. Yeah, it is more stressful for like the healers and stuff when everyone takes more damage and dies quicker. Anyway, back to the script. I forgot what it was. Like the jump in difficulty in normal raids, for example, is absolutely absurd. The first few, like the first 6, start simple and allow for mistakes. Past the second tier's half, which is like 7 of 12, it gets drastically harder for no reason, and because there are elements of the game that force you to do it for rewards, you have no choice but to do it. by failing over and over again. And in some cases it can wipe, like I've seen real action manoeuvres fail because people either not paying attention or they use controller, which for some reason doesn't work on that, at least most of the time. And then you've got people who just don't know what to do with that. And sometimes it's like artificial. There's a fight in Shadowbringers trial. I'm going into unnecessary detail again, whoops. You have to like spam a button and it has 15 seconds on it, but for some reason the button like doesn't go up when you click it, and it only starts going up when you're at like 25% of the bar, which is dumb. It shouldn't be like that. Anyway, next thing is events. There are very few events in Fantasy XIV from what I can see, but they do come back apparently. The only exception to this rule is crossover events. And from what I could tell, there's very little lore in them. But two aspects of events are bad. There is, for example, permanent content which is intended for many players, like Cosmic Exploration, which is a Endwalker one, which you cannot do effectively due to the fact it requires a group effort to get better rewards. There, for example, is a non-crossover event, but a matter of if they're repeated. First encountered this is my search for the Regalia Type G mount, which at the moment is unobtainable because the stupid director says nothing about when it'll come back, or if. And the community is huffing up to copium when the topic of Fomo comes up, so be warned about that. Also, some events can allow you to bypass certain grinds, and the Moogle Treasure events tend to have this, and they refresh the shops each time. And that's about it, I think. So how does this game fare overall versus competition? I can only speak on Modern Warcraft's behalf and Genshin Impact in the Stretch case, but I can easily say it fares better. That's not to say it's without its issues. Again, experience is more important than understanding what influences someone's recommendations or lack thereof the game, and there's less to worry about in this. Although depending on the content you plan to do, there will be obstacles, and with my current situation it's complicated. My gameplay loop at the situation at the moment is the following: MSQ, side content, and dailies, which involve tribe quests and duty roulette, and there's weeklies which involve hunt marks, Mars Carnival, Wondrous Tales, mathematics for endgame gear. There's also another way to get it of heliometry, which is a different story. It's easier to get that one. Custom deliveries to get crafter scripts. Then there's events. And then there's just whatever. Leveling a new class or getting orange scripts, which I'll do later. And farming mounts, which I'm yet to touch past or more than. Actually, that's wrong. I did a farming mount last night. It took. Well, when do I start? That's a good question. I think I started at like 8 o'clock or something. We finished at 10 o'clock at night, and like over 10 people got that mount. I was the 9th person to get it. Because we had 2 people drop out, and but we killed the boss like 52 times according to the totems I farmed. I think they farmed it for longer actually. Because the group had 2 levers before that, I think. 1 lever even. But the farming experience wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but players are kind enough to stick behind, and I did for the 10th guy who was there for longer than me, so yeah, like I scrapped everything I was going to do that evening just to help this person. You do get nice people in the community. It's not rare necessarily, but it's kind of common in areas. It's just nice to see. And one of the benefits I think of doing that is you can also get the drops from it, which is like weapons and apparently these turret cards, which are another thing. It doesn't really interest me much. You can like sell the weapons for company sales or something. Also forgot to mention the game's music is great. It's far better than World of Warcraft, far better than good impact in many cases. It's got a variety of genres and does them well. You've got jazz, electronic, and I think I've heard metal music in a dungeon before. And your standard orchestral, but sometimes it's a fusion of all of these aspects, and it's incredible. With that said, I recommend you check out Final Fantasy XIV. But again, people want the more content you take on, the more obstacles you'll run into, and pick every blue quest you see. Yeah, these unlock content and flying in other cases. And there is a tracker online, but I don't generally recommend it because it's annoying to look at. Because you just want to unlock systems and not anything else in between. It's complicated. Yeah, like, just pick up any blue quest and it's fine. There's some exceptions, like the Hildebrand quest, you'll know when you've got that. It's mainly just story. Yeah, like most blue quests unlock stuff, so do that. That's the thing, and see everyone another time, and I'll review Dawn Trail within the next month or two, assuming I get to the endgame content of Dawn Trail. But spoiler alert, it's a complete disaster.